What if the greatest mentor you will ever have is not the person sitting across from you today, but the person your life becomes tomorrow? We spend so much of our lives searching for someone to guide us that we often forget the most important question: what kind of guide will I become? Every generation looks for heroes, teachers, and leaders. Yet very few stop to realize that history is not only written by those who were mentored, it is written by those who eventually became the mentor. One day, someone will study the way you handled adversity. Someone will repeat the advice you gave them. Someone will remember the encouragement you spoke during one of their darkest seasons. Long after your voice grows silent, your influence will continue speaking. That is your legacy. It begins long before your name is remembered. It begins with the choices you make today. For years, I believed I needed to find the perfect mentor before I could become successful. I searched for someone with all the answers, someone who had already climbed every mountain I hoped to climb. I admired successful people from a distance and imagined that if only I could spend enough time with them, everything in my life would suddenly make sense. While mentors are invaluable, I eventually discovered something even more powerful. A mentor can open a door, but only discipline allows you to walk through it. A mentor can inspire you, but only your habits transform you. A mentor can point toward greatness, but only your decisions determine whether you ever arrive there. That realization changed my life. I stopped asking, who will mentor me? And started asking, who am I becoming every single day? That question shifted my focus from dependency to responsibility. I understood that every book I read became a mentor. Every failure became a mentor. Every difficult conversation became a mentor. Every setback carried wisdom if I was humble enough to learn from it. Life itself became my classroom. Then something remarkable happened. I realized I wasn't only preparing for success, I was preparing for significance. Success is personal. Legacy is generational. Success asks, what can I achieve? Legacy asks, who will become stronger because I lived? Those are completely different questions. Money can be inherited and quickly disappear. Businesses can rise and eventually fall. Buildings can be demolished. Trophies collect dust. Titles are eventually forgotten. But character has a remarkable way of surviving generations. Integrity outlives income. Kindness outlives popularity. Wisdom outlives wealth. The greatest inheritance you will ever leave isn't measured in dollars. It is measured in the people whose lives became better because they crossed paths with you. I began paying closer attention to the people I admired most. Surprisingly, they weren't remembered simply because they were wealthy. They were remembered because they invested in people. They listened. They encouraged. They challenged. They believed in others before those people believed in themselves. They understood that leadership is not measured by how many followers you collect, but by how many leaders you help create. That changed the way I approached every conversation. Instead of wondering what I could gain from people, I began asking what I could give them. Could I encourage them? Could I teach something I had learned the hard way? Could I save them from making a mistake I once made? Could I simply listen? Legacy often grows in moments that seem ordinary. A conversation, a kind word, an honest correction, a lesson shared over coffee, a phone call, a handwritten note, a quiet act of generosity. Most people never realize that history is often changed through ordinary moments repeated consistently over time. I also discovered that the greatest mentors rarely pretend to be perfect. They tell the truth about their failures. They speak openly about rejection, heartbreak, disappointment, fear, and uncertainty. They understand that transparency builds trust. Perfection creates distance. Authenticity creates connection. The people who influenced me the most weren't those who claimed they never struggled. They were the ones who showed me how they survived their struggles. That inspired me to stop hiding my scars. Instead of pretending I had always been confident, I shared how I overcame doubt. Instead of pretending success arrived easily, I talked about rejection. Instead of hiding my failures, I explained what they taught me. My scars stopped becoming sources of embarrassment. They became bridges connecting my story to someone else's healing. Then I realized something beautiful. Your greatest qualification to mentor someone may not be your victories. It may be the battle you refuse to quit. Someone needs your testimony because they're currently living through the chapter you already survived. Your breakthrough becomes someone else's blueprint. Your recovery becomes someone else's hope. Your courage becomes someone else's permission to believe again. That is how legacy is built. Not by perfection, by perseverance. As the years passed, I stopped measuring my life by promotions, possessions, and accomplishments. Instead, I began measuring it by impact. Did someone leave our conversation feeling stronger? Did someone walk away with more hope than they had before? Did I encourage someone to believe in themselves? Did I model integrity when compromise would have been easier? Those questions began shaping every decision, because one day my children, or the people who look to me, will not remember every achievement. They will remember how I treated people. They will remember whether I kept my word. They will remember whether I chose courage over comfort. They will remember whether my actions matched my advice. They will remember my example far longer than my speeches. That realization humbled me. It also challenged me. Because legacy is not created on your final day. It is created every ordinary day before it. If your faith is central to your life, perhaps the greatest legacy is reflecting the character of Christ in the way you love, forgive, serve, encourage, and lead others. The greatest teacher in history built his legacy not through wealth or political power, but through humility, sacrifice, compassion, and truth. His influence continues because he invested in people who would invest in others. That pattern reminds us that the deepest impact often comes not from building monuments, but from building lives. Today, I no longer spend my life searching endlessly for the perfect mentor. Instead, I wake up asking a different question. If someone followed my example today, would it lead them toward becoming their best self? That question keeps me humble. It keeps me growing. It keeps me accountable. Because one day my voice will become silent, my footsteps will eventually stop, my career will end, my possessions will belong to someone else, but my influence can continue walking through the lives I chose to encourage, teach, serve, and love. That is the legacy I want to leave. Not simply a life that succeeded, but a life that helped others succeed. Because in the end, the greatest mentor is not remembered for how many people admired them. They are remembered for how many people became better because they existed. And that is the kind of legacy worth spending an entire lifetime building. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the Digital Mentor 777 via YouTube.